And in the interest of time, I'm going to go through our final speaker of the workshop. It's Sarah Colefield. She's an air quality specialist with the Missoula City County Health Department. And as a public health practitioner, she wants to prepare the public for air pollution events through studies, communication, planning, and direct interventions. And her talk today is on public health responses to reduce community exposure to indoor fine PM. It brings together all those elements to better protect our community from air pollution. Sarah?
All right, thank you so much, Renji. So I'm going to be speaking to you about the public health response to particulate matter, coming at you really from a Montana lens. I'm in the Missoula City County Health Department in Missoula, Montana. So coming from a Montana lens, also largely a wildfire smoke lens, because that is a huge part of our indoor air quality particulate burden in our area, as well as what I spend most of my time doing. And I want to acknowledge that the public health response is not only public health departments working on this. There are also air quality districts and emergency operation centers and nonprofits working toward this shared work of creating cleaner indoor air opportunities for people. Now, all that being said, there are obviously additional sources of particulate matter in communities. For example, one thing that hasn't been talked about a lot in this conference is biomass burning for heat and cooking. And they can be a really substantial source of indoor particulate matter for our communities, as well as ambient air pollution. So you see a lot of interest in wood stove changeouts and removal programs. There are some programs that will pay a bounty for an old wood stove to get it out of a home. And then in Missoula County, we participated in a large wood stove changeout to upgrade the technology in the Sealy Lake homes that had really, really old, nasty wood stoves to try to get them something better to use to heat their homes and really dramatically improve the ambient air quality as well. There's also an effort to address triggers of asthma in homes beyond just wildfire smoke. So our asthma home visiting program, folks will go to a client's home and identify triggers of asthma and provide a portable air cleaner with a HEPA filter to those clients when there are triggers such as tobacco smoke and other sources of indoor particulate to give them an opportunity for cleaner indoor air. But really, I'm going to talk to you about wildfire smoke. In 2017, we had the worst smoke event that we'd ever had in our area, where we had about a month or so of really hazardous air quality conditions in Sealy Lake, that same town with the wood stove changeout. And it really drove home to us that the standard public health message of go inside is not helpful when that smoke is inside. If you have a smoke event that's like couple hours or a day, yeah, okay. If you go inside your home, close doors and windows, you might be okay. When you have the same hazardous air pollution day after day for days, weeks, and months, that's no longer helpful. And so we had to change what we did. We had to change our approach to wildfire smoke season and say, hey, if you're going to go inside, you need to be filtering that indoor air. And really, the whole role of public health with wildfire smoke has morphed into a much larger thing than it was back when I first started doing this 10 years ago. And there's really three prongs to it. There's a communication aspect of trying to get information to people before and during smoke events. There are interventions that folks do to try to provide those cleaner indoor air spaces. And there's also policy work to be done, especially to really get toward that place where we have institutional controls for indoor particulate matter, because interventions are great, but they might work in a small community, but if you have millions of people being exposed to huge amounts of particulate matter, you need something beyond your local health department loaning out air cleaners to get you over that hurdle. So on the communication front, in Missoula County, we take a really multi-pronged approach. We're trying to get information to our public in multiple different ways. I have a substantial email distribution list. I push out news releases, keep a website updated, I have blogs about wildfire smoke to keep going. We use social media accounts. We produce guidance documents. We'll go to public meetings for that face-to-face interaction, and we'll craft target messages for specific populations that might need more specific information for those situations. And we push this information out about wildfire smoke and how to protect yourself from the smoke well before smoke season arrives. So I will typically start doing some smoke ready messaging about here's how you use an air cleaner, here's how you use your central air handler in your home, here's what you do in a commercial building. I start pushing that out well before the smoke arrives. And then when the smoke is present, continue doing that as well as talking about the smoke itself. This is our main source on the internet for wildfire smoke information. It's hosted and run by Climate Smart Missoula, which is a nonprofit I work with and pretty much all of my work. It has a great bunch of information about how to create cleaner indoor spaces, what to know about wildfire smoke. There are videos and infographics and links to my long form writing on the subject. So if you want to read many thousands of words about creating cleaner indoor air spaces, there are links to my writing at this website as well. But this is a really terrific resource we have available, not only for our public, but for anybody who's interested in learning about how to create cleaner indoor spaces during a smoke event. We've also created paper products because not everybody is going to go looking for a website. So we managed to take the thousands and thousands of words that I've written about wildfire smoke and preparing for it and condensed it down to about 85 words to put on a poster that we are going to go and hopefully hang in places in our rural communities, like, you know, the local grocery store, the local hardware store is actually a really great place to put up posters so that the community know what's going on with things. So taking the messaging to where people will see it. And then we've also crafted various iterations of pamphlets that are geared toward different groups that we want to give specific information to. So this is an example of one that we did last year for older adults because the COVID plus smoke, we wanted to make sure we had information geared toward that age group. And we partnered with Missoula Aging Services to get this delivered into the hands of the folks we wanted to get in touch with. We have also posted some smoke ready business workshops where we've invited business owners and building operation folks to come and learn about how to create cleaner indoor air spaces for their customers and their employees. We copied this from SmokeWise Ashland in Oregon. They did this first. I thought that's a great idea. So we totally copied that from them. Looking forward to continuing that project. We didn't do it in 2020 because COVID, and also we were getting some data back from a study that is going to really inform the content of those workshops going forward. Now, we aren't the only people doing smoke ready messaging. Obviously, in the state of Washington, they actually have Smoke Ready Week, where they have messaging across multiple government agencies and a kind of a coordinated effort to flood the airwaves with information by preparing for fire season before it starts so that people can go out and get their filters and make sure their HVAC is in good shape and buy their portable air cleaners and make a plan before the smoke arrives, because the worst time to try to get a filter is while it's smoky outside, because you're going to have a toilet paper moment with that. Now, once the smoke has arrived, certainly there's plenty of communication to continue doing. I'm an air quality specialist, so I don't only do, I do a lot of air quality stuff specifically, which means that I'm the one doing daily updates during fire season to tell people about the smoke and give them information about the current air quality conditions, associated health advisories. I tell them what the fires are doing, where the smoke is coming from, where it's going to go, how it's going to behave throughout the day. Is it going to get better? Is it going to get worse? If it's going to get better, hey, go outside, air out your lungs, open your windows, air out your house. If it's going to get worse, stay inside and hug your air cleaner. Give them information so they can plan their day. You know, I can't make the smoke go away, but I can at least tell them what's happening, and that can give them some sort of agency and get them through the smoke event, hopefully. We also include mental health resources in those updates now, just because when you have weeks and months of smoke, it's going to wear on everybody. And if there is somewhere nearby with cleaner air, I like to put that in there too, like, hey, road trip, go get some cleaner air. All of this goes to my entire distribution list, which includes schools and daycares and other people who need to make really important decisions about activity levels for different age groups throughout the day. In addition to communication, there's a big intervention thing now a lot of us do. These are kind of main categories. You have portable air cleaner distributions, you have DIY air cleaner distributions, and those are the new box fans with a really good HVAC filter, those can be really effective. You just want to make sure that it is a newer fan. Before 2011, box fans had the unfortunate occasional tendency to catch on fire, but they fixed it and have all kinds of nice safety features to them now. So a newer box fan and a really good HVAC filter can do a really good job of cleaning. But they're going to be louder than a consumer grade portable air cleaner. And they also can kind of heat up a space if you have all your windows closed to keep the smoke out. So something to consider with that. There's a lot of interest in cleaner indoor air centers and shelters that I'll talk about a little bit. And some folks just give out N95 respirators. And you do see evacuation for smoke. You see this more frequently in First Nation communities in Canada, where they will actually go in and say, hey, y'all got to get out. There's too much smoke here. And they will basically airlift a whole community and take them out to a place with cleaner air. So if you're going to do the portable air cleaner route, this is what we've done in Missoula County, where I have a cache of portable air cleaners that I loan out to daycares and preschools as basically a way to get the most bang for my buck, because I don't have an endless supply of air cleaners. And by giving them out to daycares and preschools, I can get a lot of kids protected for not very many air cleaners. And also that really young age group is so sensitive to particulate matter that they're a very high priority for us. We also keep some on reserve for schools. In 2017, we got them into the school classrooms as much as we could, because you could see the smoke inside school classrooms. That's how bad it was. So we were able to get air cleaners into those classrooms in 2017. That's still a priority for us. And then Climate Smart Missoula, they give theirs away because that's the route they have chosen to go. If you're going to do an air cleaner distribution project, there are a lot of things you need to think about. This is just kind of the most basic. You need to decide how you're going to select and triage your recipients, because you are not going to have enough for everybody. So how are you going to triage? You need to decide, are you going to loan them out, or are you going to give them away? There are pros and cons to both of those. If you're a one-person operation like me, running a loaning program it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I would rather give them away. You need to decide how you're going to pay for it. There is not funding usually for this. There are some exceptions, but where I am, it's all competitive grants. And if I don't get a grant, that means that I don't get to protect my community. It means somebody else does, and that's really, really great, but it means that I don't get to. And having public health as a competition is really frustrating, but something you need to figure out. If you're going to do an intervention, how are you going to pay for it? And then you have to figure out, are you going to follow up with your recipients to make sure they're using it correctly? Are you going to message them to say, hey, the air is getting bad, turn on your air cleaner, or hey, have you replaced your HEPA filter yet? Are you going to have that constant contact to make sure they're actually benefiting from that technology? Ashland, Oregon has a pretty great thing set up with their recipients of their air cleaners, where they keep track with them with text messages, so that they're a good resource for folks to talk to about that. Like I said, there is a lot of interest in cleaner air centers. In my view, there's really 3 different levels of resource intensiveness with this. The least resource intensive would be to pre-identify publicly accessible buildings in the community that have advanced filtration and a plan for a wildfire season. Now, this means you don't have to do anything other than say, hey, that building, go there, go to the library. But the odds of having one of these buildings that's actually like up to snuff before fire season, not necessarily great, but if you have them, great. Moderate resources, this is if you're going to like designate a site and say, hey, come here during the day, get a few hours of break. There's a lot you still have to provide, like childcare, stacks, entertainment, sanitation, security. There's a lot that goes into even setting up a respite center during the day. And then if you're going to go say, hey, I'm going to have a whole 24-hour shelter, that is going to be even more resource intensive. You still have to have the correct building, and then all those other resource concerns of staffing and providing security and sanitation. And you know, there's a lot of desire to provide cleaner air spaces for people who have no ability to have clean indoor air, either because their home is really, really leaky and they can't afford any kind of air cleaning, or they're unhoused. But when you're going to go with an air shelter route, there's a lot to think about. For a cleaner indoor air center, there's some considerations such as your HVAC is probably going to need retrofits to provide cleaner air. You aren't going to find a ton of buildings that are just ready to go. You really should monitor the indoor particulate matter because you can't really know what's happening unless you're watching it. And be prepared for the fact that smoke event durations can vary. They can be days, weeks, and even months. So you got to be prepared for that. And think about who the space is for, and is there another less expensive and resource intensive intervention available? If you're just providing a place for people who, for their homes, they don't have a way to clean their homes, you might actually save some money by giving them an air cleaner to create clean indoor air in their home, because then you have to provide all those other services. Then they can stay home with their pets and their families and not deal with the stress of being away from home. What we have found in our area, and this has been true in other rural areas, people don't really want to go to shelters. So if you have a community that doesn't want to go to shelters, you might save yourself some money by finding a different intervention. Like when we had the terrible smoke in Seeley Lake, we offered a shelter and nobody came to it. And when Seeley Lake was evacuated because the fire came to town, 8 people showed up at the shelter for the evacuees. So you think about your community before you just go this route, and then how are you going to pay for it? I'm going to keep coming back to that because in Montana, we don't have money for this. Nobody's given me money to do this. Now, we are concerned about the indoor air quality in just the buildings around town. So we teamed up with EPA to get more understanding about the indoor air quality in publicly accessible buildings that folks might go to get respite from the smoke. We put purple air sensors inside buildings, inside and outside buildings in a lot of different types of buildings, fitness centers, library, daycare, preschool, schools, to get an idea of what is actually happening. And first off, we found that pretty much everybody is rocking a MERV 8 filter because that's all ASHRAE requires. Even buildings that are supposed to have MERV 13s because they're LEED Platinum certified, or they had previously promised me they'd have MERV 13s, they had MERV 8 filters because they're cheaper. We also found though that even amongst those MERV 8 filters, there's huge variety of the amount of particulate reduction inside of these buildings, which tells us that there's a lot more going on in determining the indoor air quality than just whatever filter they have in their air handler. And even within the same building, you can have a big variety of what the air quality is like. So example, that fitness center where we had a preschool and a fitness facility in the same building, big variety in particulate reduction. And also, I just want to point out that in our 2 years of field research, the very best we ever saw was a 60% reduction of PM, which is not fantastic. If there's 200 micrograms per cubic meter outside and you only have a 60% reduction, you still have unhealthy air quality inside that building. And when you're looking at preschools, schools, daycares, you want better than that. When we took a closer look at the HVAC handler for that fitness center that had the really big variety between particulate concentrations in their rooms, we found that in both cases, the dampers that control the airflow were broken, but they had broken kind of cracked open for the weight room, which just allowed outdoor air just to come in. And in the preschool, they had failed closed, which means preschool is probably getting their air from other parts of the building. But it's really kind of drove home that the filter is not a great indicator of what your air quality is going to be like. In the HVAC evaluation our engineer did, he found many fascinating and troubling issues with HVAC maintenance that really explains the types of particulate concentrations we were finding inside. Also of note is the study was also conducted in California for the Hoopa Valley tribe. And this is a chart from a daycare where they had a new HVAC system, but it was such an extreme smoke event that the air handler could not keep up with the amount of smoke. I mean, yeah, they saw like a 60% reduction. When you have 600 to 1,000 micrograms per cubic meter outside, you're not going to have clean indoor air just relying on the system that they had in place. They had to bring in an industrial type of portable air cleaner with HEPA filters to achieve the type of cleaning that you want to have. And that really is kind of brought home to us that a central air system a big HVAC, it might not really be able to keep up with really extreme smoke events. So you need to be able to monitor that indoor air and then have supplemental cleaning potentially.
Hey, Sarah,
Now,
sorry, we're a little over time. Can you wrap it up in maybe 1 or 2 minutes?
yeah, I am. I'm in the home
Thank you.
stretch. Now, happily, there is some policy being done to achieve some of the things that we need to be done. This is not a comprehensive list at all. In Montana, we finally have school rules that at least reference indoor air quality and require schools to inspect their HVAC. Washington Department of Health has issued closure guidance for when schools have poor indoor air quality. California is actually providing money to create cleaner indoor air centers. They're going to be giving money to upgrade filtration systems and to purchase portable air cleaners. They also have the first worker protection rules for wildfire smoke that says employers, if they aren't filtering the air, they need to provide basically respiratory protection. I'm really hoping that this is going to lead to more employers saying, oh, I'm going to start filtering my indoor air more so they don't have to have their workers going around in respirators. And then there are wildfire smoke response protocols that call for the creation of cleaner air shelters without really having funding attached to it in Washington and Oregon, although Oregon does have legislation sitting in committee right now that would provide funding for upgrading the filtration in those facilities. And something that will help us with this, hopefully, is guidance from ASHRAE that is really geared toward finally acknowledging that we need to do more during wildfire smoke events. This is something that we can lean on to say, hey, if we're in a wildfire smoke prone areas, you need to adopt these ASHRAE guidelines. And having this document come from ASHRAE is going to have a lot more weight than I'm an air quality specialist who's read some things and talked to engineers. So I'm really excited to have this guidance from ASHRAE. So to sum up, research needs, we need to know the most effective communication to see behavioral change. We had some great talks about that earlier. We need to know the most effective and sustainable interventions. How do we get the most bang for our buck? What is the most effective and most important thing to be doing? We need to know indoor air quality during smoke events. I think there needs to be just massive monitoring of indoor air quality so that we actually know how effective our cleaning technologies are being and we can make changes as needed. So I just want to summarize all of this, kind of bring it home with, we need to do more on a policy level, and we need to do more to actually take the steps to create cleaner indoor air spaces, because the technology exists. We just aren't really doing it. And one thing that could maybe get us over that hump is an indoor air quality standard, at least for schools or daycares, that says, hey, these young children need to be in a place with cleaner air, and this is what that level should be. Because right now there is no standard for particulate matter indoors, and that is leaving us without a tool to really address it. So I'll go ahead and stop there.
Great, thank you, Sarah. So now it's time for our roundtable discussion. Like